Yes, everybody, welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Or, of course, if you are watching on our rapidly growing YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ here for another edition of our off-season UNC football ISO series. And this one, we're going to be focusing on UNC linebacker Cedric Gray, who's, for most Carolina fans, probably know this, coming off a pretty impressive year last season in 2021 during his sophomore campaign. So before we talk about Cedric, before we dive into that a little bit more, I want to give ourselves a shout out in this one. We're not going to give our sponsors a shout out in this one. We're going to give ourselves a shout out in this one. And that is TarHeelIllustrated.com, as you see written across the banner right above our heads. Make sure you guys head on over to our website. If you just click the description below, you'll find a link. Go ahead and click that link. It'll take you right over there. And guys, if you want to sign up to be a premium member, you can do so for just $8.33 a month. And guys, the site is always, it was 365 days a year. Recruiting's going on all the time. Just because Carolina football and basketball don't have games going on, there's always plenty of content and plenty of things going on at TarHeelIllustrated.com. Recruiting, if you want to be more involved in recruiting, you want to hear a little bit more about football and basketball recruiting, what's kind of going on, be more in the loop with that, be an insider too, as we like to say. You have to be signed up because most of our content on the recruiting side is premium content. So again, guys, if you want to do that, $8.33 a month. AJ, you're obviously the publisher, so let people in on a little bit more of the stuff we do on TarHeelIllustrated.com that you have to be a premium member to be signed up for.
Actually, one of the things that a lot of people tell me that they appreciate most about what we do is just our interaction on the message boards. People have questions, they ask, I answer. We really have we had some fascinating discussions during the course of the basketball run to the Final Four. And then afterward with some of the decisions the guys made, and the Dawson Garcia thread will probably never die. That is a fascinating one, but people appreciate, and they ask us a question. Dina hops on there. I hop on there. David, you're on the board a lot. Brandon P is getting on the board more and more. And there's Kevin's on the board. There's a lot that we have to offer by having a relationship with our subscribers. We're not just feeding you content and you never hear from us again. We are regularly on the board. I check it probably a dozen times a day, even on light working days. So that is one of the features. And there's just so many nuggets of information, so much insight. And again, answering people's questions. And the other thing, Jacob, is the Zooms. We do subscriber only Zooms. You have to be a subscriber. And that is when we kind of, rip away certain walls, knock them down, and we kind of give a little bit more that we won't put on the boards. And that is something, a feature that a lot of people love. In fact, people are pestering me all the time. When are we doing the next Zoom? It's like, guys, I can't give you absolutely everything.
You got to find the time, yeah.
Or maybe I can. You never know. That's the great thing about the Zooms is they don't really know what I'm going to throw at them during the course of that. Sometimes I don't know. It just comes up. And a lot of it's I tell them stories, interactions, things that people I've dealt with in the business, and inside information about the Tar Heels. Like our motto is, if you could be an insider too. All you have to do is just $8.33 a month. And there's a ton of stuff that you'll only get as a subscriber that you're not going to get on a bunch of other. There are a couple really good sites that cover Carolina, but a lot of the ones that are fringe ones know the Facebook pages, you're not going to get the truth. You go to those Facebook pages and read the comments. Everybody on those people need to subscribe to the sites that cover UNC. Yeah. All the sites that cover UNC, because they need information and they 100%. Really get highly informed going through our site. Yeah, so that's the longest self pitch we've ever done. Should we be ashamed or proud?
I think we should be proud. I mean, I think we work hard, and good Lord, AJ never stops working. So I mean, for all the work we put in, I think it's if people want more information, want to come sign up, be a part of the THI family, I think it's 100% worth it. Last thing I'll say about it too, by signing up on the website, you are directly supporting if you love these videos, you're directly supporting the YouTube channel as well. And obviously the more subscribers we get, the more income we bring in, the more stuff we can do on the YouTube channel as well. And the more types of videos we can do in different places and everything like that. So it all works hand in hand. And if you want to come support us, like I said, just click the link in the description below, $8.33 a month. That'll take you right over there to the sign up page. All right, AJ, let's go ahead and dive into Cedric Gray on this one, as we're probably about 15 minutes into this podcast already.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're killing it right now.
Anybody who knows Cedric, like, hey man, I want to hear these guys talk about Cedric Gray. They're probably going, what the heck? They're not talking about Cedric.
Yeah, they probably read the title 5 times to see what this podcast is about. We are talking about.
We can make them feel better by saying we knew a lot of people would click Cedric Gray video, right?
Exactly.
So we're getting in our pitch.
Exactly, man. We knew where we needed to put this pitch in, and that's a great way to start with it, AJ. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but I thought Cedric Gray had a really, really good season last year for me, and what was a disappointing season for Carolina football overall. I think most fans would agree with that. I think pretty much everybody inside the program would agree with that. I thought Cedric Gray was kind of one of the shining lights and one of the guys that kind of stepped up and played well throughout the season and really turned into a guy that is kind of a guy you expect to see, and a guy that I think is a leader on the defense at this point. I think he's a guy Carolina fans know about. They know the type of player he is. They know how important he is on the defensive side of the ball. A guy that really flies around the field, aggressive player, plays with a lot of energy. I think he's really, really turned into a good player. Appeared in 13 games last season, started in 11 at linebacker, actually tied for fourth in the ACC with the team leading 100 tackles, and also had 5 tackles for a loss and 2.5 sacks. So just a really good year for Cedric Gray, in my opinion. Now, I guess the step for him is to seeing what he can do this year as more of a guy that's going to be expected to step up and be a real leader on this defense. Going to be one of the guys that's going to be expected to play good consistently with the expectations that are now on him. So before we talk about the future a little bit, what are your thoughts on kind of the season Gray had last year? Because like I said, I think he was one of the kind of the shining lights in what was pretty much a disappointing season for Carolina.
Well, there's no doubt he ended up with 100 tackles, as you noted, but he didn't get on the field a lot until the third game. He started the Virginia game. And I asked him here recently, at what point last season was there a sequence, was there a play, a specific moment where he did something on the field and it kind of registered to him, okay, I can do this. I can handle playing this role in the ACC. And he said it was a pass deflection he had in the end zone when he was covering a slot back for Virginia. And Virginia ended up kicking a field goal on that drive. It would have been a touchdown if Cedric didn't perfectly play that ball. And maybe the game would have been a little bit different at the time. But he deflected the ball and he realized, okay, if I could, he thought he could handle the run stuff. And he thought he could handle the tight end stuff and maybe some of the things over the middle. But this was a ball that was snapped at the 17-yard line. And the slot back, he's getting into the end zone quickly. It's a quick play. So you have to be quick and fast. You have to read, you have to be quick, and you have to be fast. And he made the play and he realized, okay, I can cover too at this level as well. So I think that was a big moment for him. He had a couple of interceptions last year. There were times where he made huge plays. He made a lot of mistakes too, Jacob. Mm-hmm. He didn't grade out great through PFF. Not terrible, but not great. Mm-hmm. But the thing about it is the things that he struggled with at times are all fixable. A lot of it is just a matter of, okay, get that guy into the offseason, get him in the film room on a regular basis, get him into spring camp so he can work on some stuff. And he said using his hands, not catching the ball and stuff like that or deflecting the ball, using his hands when in engagement was one of the things he really worked on. And if you go back and look at last year, if that aspect of his game is 15, 20% better, he's going to grade out really, really well. And you add to the fact he's got Gene Chizik and his defense in there, and he's learning that system, which is less complicated. It's far more simplified. I think that all the things he went through last year, the positives and negatives, are going to springboard into a big-time season in 2022.
Do you think consistency is just kind of the biggest thing that he needs to kind of work on going into this season? Because like I said, I know he didn't grade out well at all times, but he had a pretty good year. Do you think that's kind of the next step for Cedric during his junior season?
I think it's that for every guy on defense.
It's a good point, yeah.
Because there were times when the defense looked good for a couple of quarters, and in the same game, they would be turn into a train wreck for a couple of quarters. So the players, if the defense is doing that, it's because the players are doing it, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, Cedric had some of those times where he didn't play that great, but he also had times where see, if a guy shows you enough high-end moments, high-end sequences, then it's there. It's just a matter of the consistency. It's like that in any sport, whether you're a hitter in baseball, whether you're a shooting guard in basketball, a la Caleb Love, whatever it is, consistency is the key. Consistency on a high end. I think Cedric Gray has a chance of being an all-ACC linebacker, but he's got to be more consistent. And I do think with what they're doing defensively, it will help because there won't be as much pre-snap confusion. I think that they've probably cut down on that, and that will affect him a lot. Because you remember last year, Jeremiah Gilmore's one of the smartest dudes I've ever covered, but how many times did you see him not even looking at the ball when it was snapped?
Too many. Because
he's so concerned about getting other guys ready because the communication was a mess. Okay, That's out the door. There will still be a lot of communication, but not as much. It's going to be more succinct. And Gene Chizik told us when we talked with him about a week and a half after spring practice that it's not just pre-snap communication, it's post-snap communication. It's the guys pointing and being alert and being prepared within the framework of their defense to recognize things and react quickly and yell for assist, call for assist, to be able to communicate then. That's something I think Cedric can be pretty good at, especially because he also improved his volume. If you're in a stadium with 60,000 people and you got to communicate to a corner and you're the middle linebacker, corner's got to be able to hear you.
Yeah, you got to be
so
loud.
That's part of the issue as well. And I never heard the previous regime ever talk about being able to be heard, but Gene Chizik emphasized in the spring being able to be heard. And the first guy right there to do that is Cedric Gray. He's taken over the so-called Jeremiah Gemmel role. He's going to make a lot of the calls. He's got to be one that's constantly barking and communicating. So guys need to hear him. Mm-hmm. And so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out early in the season. But I think he's fully capable of handling that role. And he's a really good athlete.
Yeah.
I think we can see, if there's more consistency, then maybe the high-end stuff goes up a notch as well. That'll be interesting as well.
Last question real quickly before we wrap this one up. How important is he to Carolina's defense? When you mentioned Jeremiah Gemmel a lot, not only Carolina's defense, but with him going out the door with a linebacker core that's relatively young, get a Eugene Usante, who Cedric Gray kind of took over for last year, obviously transferring to Auburn. So you got a really young linebacker core. Then you got Cedric Gray, a guy who's going to be stepping into Gemmel's footsteps, kind of being the leader on that defense. How important is he to the defense and that linebacker core in particular?
Well, huge, because the rest of that room, if you look at the inside linebackers, pretty young.
Yeah.
Because Power Echols is a true sophomore. He didn't play a whole lot till late last year. Gemmel got ejected against Wake, and he was not well in the South Carolina game. So Power got some needed snaps. In retrospect, it's a good thing he got those. And then you're talking about Robert, you're talking about Cheeks. You're talking about some young guys there at linebacker. So he needs to be healthy. And he needs to be on the field, but they're going to play 4 linebackers. So they didn't really sub at linebacker much. The last 2 defensive coordinators didn't sub. Going back to Papuchis, didn't sub much at linebacker. Gene Chizik says they're going to sub, but I would imagine that the guy who gets the most reps is going to be Cedric Gray, because they just need him on the field. They need him for the calls. They need his smarts. They need his experience. And as I noted at the beginning of this podcast, he's a guy that could play the run, and he could defend a slot receiver going into the end zone. That's pretty big time.
It's pretty big time, AJ. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Good place to wrap this one up in the Cedric Gray edition of our offseason UNC football ISO series. Going to be running a few more of these out throughout the offseason as well. So make sure you guys stay tuned in, stay locked into our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And real quickly, because we had a 5-minute promo in the beginning, head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Sign up for just $8.33 a month. And that's all I'm saying about it, AJ. I'm done talking about TarHeelIllustrated.com in this one. Before people click off of this one and never watch us again. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Again, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well, so you know every single time we upload it. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.